So I made a really quick diagram. So I just wanted to show like the basics for the fuse launcher in case anyone was interested. Basically the launcher here, this is the launcher and it goes through all these steps. And it starts with it's basically it just reads and writes to files. I was trying a pipe, like a named pipe, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I just started using files. It just like grabs the whatever you put in here, your master profile, everything you put in here, on the first loop it grabs this, on the second loop it grabs this, so it just loops through the profile, grabs each name, and then copies it to this like temporary file that it generates, which is this guy right here. If you don't have this file, it just generates the file. And it creates that file, it pushes that in there, and then it launches Continuum. Once Continuum is launched, Marvin kind of takes over and it actually reads this file and copies that to its profile. It only copies the first profile and then it just plays the games. It just copies what it needs to like change the profile. So it logs in as the correct user and then launches the game. Once the game is launched, it sends this acknowledgement back to that same file. It just overwrites the file. And then basically during after the launcher launches Continuum, it's just monitoring this file for this acknowledgement message. And once it gets it, it can like move on to the next spot and just continue the loop until they're all done. And then once it finishes that, it has the handle to Continuum. So it can use the handle and watch Continuum to see if it's exited. And that's basically all Marvin does. Is if it sees that it's disconnected from the game or something's weird where it's locked in spec or something, it just exits the game. It just closes itself out. And that's the signal for the launcher to just restart it. I basically wanted to do that. I wanted the login to be controlled by the launcher because it can do it in a loop and it can do it sequentially. So I don't have to worry about these bots. If I've got 10 of them running and 10 of them all disconnect and suddenly they all try to reconnect at the same time, uh, they basically it just wrecks everything because they can't all log in at the same time. So there has to be some sort of way to like control them or time them. And this seems to be the easiest way to do it. It's just have like an external process control the login. So yeah, I'll just go through like some of the code really fast. Basically, this is the Fuse launcher project. Uh, we start by looking for the other files. We want to see the other files in the same directory. If we don't see them, send an error, and then we send a quick warning, just letting you know it's going to overwrite your profile data. Give you like 5 seconds to like close the window, and then we look for these matching files. Basically, we're looking for these temporary files that just pile up. They I don't have many in there, but I get these like every time you run one of these, it'll just generate one of these temporary files. You'll just end up with a ton of them. So I try to just delete them. And then the next thing it does is it closes, it'll look for any continuing process and close it first before even launching anything. So it really does save a lot of headaches. And then it's going to load the profile data and it's going to load that data from here. That's what it's loading. So if we jump to that one, I did not jump to it. jump, go to definition. There we go. So yeah, it just loads the profile data. It's pretty fragile. I think the only thing I did was tell it to just skip any empty lines, but it basically just it's a line counter. So this profile data has to be exactly 5 lines. If any of these are missing, it'll totally ruin it. And then uh, once it finds, so okay, yeah, this one it's just pumping this into a temporary like buffer. It's not even doing any kind of reading, but it does have to match the lines. It has to count the lines and then uh, it stacks them into their own like vector. So that's basically all this thing is. It's pretty simple. So if we go back, so it loads that profile and it loads it here. It's just loading it into this like, yeah, it's an array of my data type that I created. And then if for some reason it breaks and this ends up being empty, it just says, hey, this is empty, and then we quit. Uh, and then here's where it starts. It starts each bot. So there's a loop for the bot. It pumps in the data that it just read, and then it pumps in the name, uh, and it returns a handle. So this goes, starts continuum. So starting continuum is kind of interesting. It's basically just calling create process, but for whatever reason, the handle that's returned when you start continuum, it's not good. Like it's already signaled that it's closed. So you can't use these handles. You can't even use the process ID to get a handle. You basically, the easiest thing to do is to immediately call get process handle, which uses this create tool help, like the snapshot. And all this is like a really generic lookup for a process with the exe file name is continuum.exe. So I don't know. I guess this works really well if you call it directly after the process created because I'm assuming it's ordered in this list as like the next process that you'll find. So even if you have 5 continuum windows open, it's always going to pop up on the last one you opened first. At least that's how it's the only way it makes sense to me that this would work. And then now we have the actual process ID and we just copy it over. We use that process ID to use open process and we get a handle. Now we have a handle to continuum so we can look at that. We just return that handle. Uh, so yeah, now we have officially started continuum and we have the handle, which is actually I spent a lot of time griefing over that. And then here's the loop where it waits. It starts continuum, and now it just sits here. It opens the file, this temporary file, and then it reads the first line. And if it matches the the OK plus the name, basically it's looking for exactly what this. It looks for that. And it won't break out of this loop until it sees it. So if there's something wrong with continuum and it doesn't start, this is going to be stuck. So I'm probably going to have to fix this later or really make sure that continuum never gets stuck. And these are really simple. Just like set it up. Let's try it. Let's go. So That's it. We're starting Marvin. So we're here. However many we created. Uh, if you have 5 names in that list, you'll have 5 processes. Um, one thing you might have noticed is that there's no multi-cont, like the multi-continuum piece. You don't even need it here. That's all actually handled now. It's handled by Marvin. Right here, it's calling it's actually overriding. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, went too high. Really simple. It's this right here. That's basically overriding the mutex, and that's it. Um, so once it does that, it enters the loop where all it's doing is it's using that handle. So you create an exit code, and then you call get exit code process, and you feed it the handle that we returned from when we created the process. And as long as that exit code is still active, it'll just do nothing. But as soon as that exit code becomes, anything other than a still active, then we close that handle and we just start a new bot. Basically, starting the new bot creates a new handle, and that's it. That's like as simple as this thing gets. Um, the other injector, I had so much junk going on, like with searching for windows, uh, closing error windows, like trying to look for and close error windows that were popping up, and I'm really hoping that this method like really pretty much solves all those stupid error windows I was getting. I had all these like special extra things, like I had to fetch all the windows and then I had to enumerate through every window and look each window looking for, is this window an application error? Is the title an error title? Is the information title? I think the worst one was the direct draw error. So if you get the one that says with the title error, it's always this direct draw error for whatever reason. Once you get that direct draw error, it's like you have to close down every continuum window. Otherwise, it just keeps popping up. So you have to shut down all of them and restart from scratch. It was such a pain. I don't even know if I fixed that. Uh, but yeah, that's it. I think that's. Was there anything else in here that was? This is where I close all the processes. I just use the same method as getting the handle. It just runs through everything, looks for a name, and then it grabs that handle and close and terminates the process, and then closes the handle for it. Uh, file. This is just getting the working directory so I know where I am. Loading the profile data. Write to file is really basic. That's how I was writing to these data files. Um, I guess on the Marvin side, there's a little bit extra that had to be created. I'm looking. Yeah, it's read profile data. So this is where Marvin is actually opening the temporary Marvin data file, and then it's reading it, and it's just this like chunk, 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 step, step, step. because the data file is exactly the same format. So it's like chunk, get line, find the name. Here it is. Here's the name. Find the equal sign and then step forward 2 spaces. So find the equal sign, step forward 2 spaces, and now grab whatever's left over. So if I were to put a space here, it'd give you a name with a space at the beginning. It's really fragile. It's really simple. Easy to break. I'll probably have to fix it later. Uh, but yeah, it just steps through each one of these and transfers them into my player profile data, which was a structure that I created. I try to remember. Yep, this is it. I can't even use the window mode, can't use the ship, it doesn't work. Uh, I can use the chats, the zone name, player name, and the password though. Uh, so one thing that I broke a lot was if this file is somehow empty or like there's not the right crap in here. I had to do a really quick check, which is like grab the first line and then like for the first 5 lines, just do a check. And it just checks to make sure like those 5 lines are there and that they actually have like at least have an equal sign somewhere on the line. So that was pretty much all I had to do to read this. So it reads all that, puts it in, let's see, that data file, and it returns it. I can't remember where it's being called though. It's in here somewhere. Uh, there's the hook I created. Well, I just copied and pasted it from ChatGPT. It actually like works. It's like one of the few things it wrote that just works. Um, Here's where Marvin quits. This is the menu. So this is the update loop for the menu. I had to do this thing. Basically, if I want Marvin to quit Continuum, I'll find a spot here. So here's a part where it quits. It checks the connect state and also checks the map. It wants to see if the map is actually like loaded. And it also checks to see if it switched to disconnected. And then it has to quit. So it can send this post quit message, but all it does is it quits back to the menu. So I have to like signal this so that when it falls back to the menu, this will be the update loop for the menu. This kicks in, it sees that signal, and then it quits again. It sends this, and then the menu quits out. The game will finally quit. So it has to do it twice. It's kind of annoying. Uh, I think that's it. Like that was I don't remember where I used. I want to show the part where it actually loaded the profile data. There it is. So here's the menu. This is where basically when you start continuing using the fuse method, this is where it starts. So it'll load the game. It'll open the log file. So if the profile data is empty, this is where it reads the profile data. And after that, if it's still, like if the player name is still empty, that means it probably read a file that was like the bad format. So then it'll just default to using the get name, which is basically whatever was originally on the profile data when the game started, and then it just like sets the name. And um, here's the signal where it says I haven't set the profile data yet. So here it writes to the player profile, and then it also sets the menu selected zone. So these were pretty cool. Like this was Monkey found this one. I kind of found some of this, but I was just basically hopping off of what Monkey has already like found. So I went, looked through the memory, got all these offsets that half of them don't even do anything. Like you try and write to this memory addresses and it doesn't change much of anything at all. So these are the three I kept. After finding all that, I got the name, the password, and the chats. That's all I'm writing to. And I'm just feeding it the data. I'm feeding it a data that's got the name, password, and chats. That's it. Uh, and then if I go back, after it writes to the player profile, it also has to set the selected zone. So this one was uh, a bit harder because it's like a pointer to to an array. So this I was never going to be able to find this. Um, Basically, we already had this. We already had the zone index, but I didn't know what the count was. So I didn't want to just like start at the zone index and start looping to like look for zones. So Monkey found the index, he found the count, and then he found this structure, which is this. And inside the structure, it's got the zone name. So I can use the name to right here compare to the zone name that's listed inside this file. So when you create this, whatever you write here is going to end up here, and it's going to be compared to a list of zone names. And that those zone names are whatever you have currently set up inside your continuum. Whenever you load continuum, whatever's displayed on your zone list, that's probably what's going to show up there. And then once it finds a match, it just sets the index, this current zone index. It just like writes it straight to memory. It just changes the index. So that was super helpful. Uh, and that's it. That's the whole system, at least the new system for the launcher. Uh, yeah, if you made it this far, hopefully I explained that well enough for like if if you know anything about this at all, like maybe that made sense. I don't know. I might go and do another video for Marvin just by itself, and I would probably just for the video, I would just explain this one file, like the actual main file. Everything else is kind of not as important as like understanding the way this all flows. 'Cause this like the way all this flows is pretty important. Uh, I think that's it. I'll end the video here.